but I can also take the entire wisdom of the Torah, right, distill it down, throw it over to some guy, Jesus, goes viral and changes the world. So Judaism changed the world.
His marketing was spectacular.
He was the most viral Jew in the world.
Absolutely.
I love Jesus.
From Los Angeles, it's your weekly news report for both of the two Americas. It's Conservatively Unplugged with Judd Dunning.
With one of my favorite radio hosts, man, AM 870, Ben Shapiro.
Oh, thanks so much.
Breitbart, which then you went on now. You're working with Fox, right?
Daily Wire is the site.
And Daily Wire, you went on for Breitbart.
And I have a podcast there as well, solo podcast.
So, doing your college tour, I mean, you're in the face of media. You know, you're right there on the edge of, you're one of these power pundits that is actually influencing the vote.
I hope, yeah.
Yeah, well, I think also you're staying strong conservative line. And I don't know if you call yourself Mensa. I was hoping somebody would actually eventually come to me and tell me I'm Mensa. I don't think I am. But you skipped a couple grades. Your whole life has been retaining information, distilling information, and then creating a view. And your view is what you sell. Critical of Trump as it relates to the GOP. So what's the solution?
I mean, I think the solution, unfortunately, there are no good solutions here. So there's no way out but through. So there's two possible solutions here. One is that the conservative movement starts saying about Trump, yeah, he's a full-on disaster area, but he's slightly less of a disaster area than Hillary, but we're going to hold his feet to the fire, right? This is sort of the Dennis Prager position. I think it's a respectable position. Then there's my position, which is he's such a disaster area that I'm not sure the conservative movement can come back from it. Because one of two things happens here. Either he wins or he loses, right? If he loses, and he loses big, we are tarred with the Donald Trump brush forever. Right, you can see how the left is super excited about this, right? This guy who calls judges Mexican and who insults the disabled and who refuses to dissociate from the KKK and tells people protesters should be punched, right? You can see the left is very excited about labeling us all Trumpkins from now until the end of time. So if he loses and we jumped on board just to stop Hillary and we endorsed all of that, it's going to be a problem for us. If he wins, then we have to fight the battle of he's not a conservative, because he's not. He doesn't believe in the Constitution.
He's not a check-the-box conservative. You and I know your beliefs. I follow you. I check, I think, every box in the conservative. I believe the philosophy is the most corrective and healthiest for the nation.
Yes, I mean, individual liberty and limited government, you know, through the checks and balances of the Constitution, on the basis of natural law that gives men rights. Yes, this is, but I don't think Trump knows any of the phrases I just said. He may know some of the conjunctions, but he knows none of the phrases.
He's a result of many of the phrases, right? He lives in a box in a world that actually created.
We live in the freest, most prosperous country in the face of the earth and in history. We're all products of that, but that doesn't mean that we know what made us the product, right? So, and that's the problem I have with Trump, is that Trump is actually just a big government, ad hoc authoritarian. He figures as president you get to do what you want, just like you would as the CEO of a business get to do what you want. He doesn't understand checks and balances. He doesn't understand that individuals have liberty from government. He's not conservative. So what I've said is that if he wins, he could very well do to conservatism what George W. Bush did, which is continue to push it down this path toward leftism. And what you end up with, basically, with Trump is a European far-right leader as opposed to a conservative leader. And if he hijacks the conservative movement and kills it, then that to me is a much greater cost than 4 years of the second worst president in American history, which is what Hillary would be.
So if the midterm elections, we were just talking about this earlier, it was a vote against Obama, not really for the GOP's forward movement. So this vote, the Trump vote, let's call it the anti-Washington vote, it might be what's good for our system. It could be a constructive deconstruction.
Well, listen, there's a lot about the system that's broken, but I think that we have to define what the system is. The system is not the checks and balances. You know, people keep saying government doesn't do what I want it to do. The government's not supposed to do what you want it to do. The government is supposed to leave us all alone. Right? That's why the founders constructed it this way. We're not supposed to hijack the government and then become our own Aristotelian dictators, and we sit there lording it over everybody else, which is sort of what it's become. You know, the fact that when Trump says the system is broken, and he's saying it to people like, I'm going to bring your job back, no, you're not. And the system isn't broken if the system just gives me the liberty to sell my products and buy products from whom I choose. The system is broken if you tell me I can't do that.
Right.
So the diagnosis is correct, but I'm not sure he even understands the terms of the diagnosis. So if you want to break the system, well, you have to break the corporatism of Wall Street and DC. You want to break that relationship, that's great, but you can't elect Donald Trump to do it. He believes in that stuff. Right? He says that eminent domain is a wonderful thing. You elect somebody to come in and build up the military and make America great again on foreign policy level. Trump doesn't believe in that. He believes in an isolationist foreign policy, and he's sort of ad hoc in what he decides to get involved in.
Foreign policy, it's not an axis of evil, right? That was a great thing. That was the one thing I did love about George Bush.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like, I mean, no moral relativism. This is bad. This is good.
That's right. I mean, George W. Bush understood that a strong America on the foreign policy scene is less likely to get hit than a weak America on the foreign policy scene. Trump seems to think that foreign policy is just people dithering around in the Middle East. And unfortunately, that's what it has been with Obama, but the solution isn't, okay, let's just withdraw from the entire region of the world and hand it over to the Iranians and the Russians.
Yeah.
So, on domestic policy, I don't think he knows what he's doing. On foreign policy, I don't think he knows what he's doing. And more than anything else, I don't think that he has a basic philosophy that agrees with anything that the founders agreed with or that I agree with. And so if you want to use him as a tool to stop Hillary Clinton and then hold his feet to the fire, that's at least fair. But I don't see that happening. I see what's happening is people are enthusiastically endorsing all of the Trumpism. And if you endorse that Trumpism, you own it, man.
Oh, so you're never Trumper? Are you?
Yeah, I mean, the way Never Trump works, it's not a movement, right? It's just a bunch of people saying it's a declaration of what I will do, right? Right now, I will not vote for Trump in the election. I won't vote for Hillary either because I would stab myself in the eye with an ice pick, Trotsky style, before I would do that.
use it after you, and you don't even sterilize it. I will take your ice pick.
Well, the sterilization wouldn't help you. I mean, you'd presumably die, so the infection wouldn't work.
I thought voting for Cruz, people are like, oh, Cruz is too far, he's too far. I'm like, listen, Cruz is the hard right vote that brings us right back to the center of America after 8 years of going much far. A centrist took us hard left. I just want America. America's like a big aircraft carrier. You've got to plan a half a mile ahead. You've got to plan years ahead to get us back to center. We went way off center now, so.
It's tragic that Hillary is the most vulnerable Democratic candidate of the modern era, and
so she's the best Republican running.
No, she's awful.
She's not, right?
No, she's terrible in every way. I mean, she's awful, awful, awful. But but the fact that she's so vulnerable, and the best we could come up with against her was literally the most unpopular man in America.
Yeah, I am going to vote for Trump. It's interesting. I have a group of 25 people I meet with for 8 years, and we had it out. And I said, look, I'm going to go with my GOP philosophy. You wake up in the morning, Ben Shapiro. You've got a lot of influence right now. You worked hard. You've crafted your own success, your way, and your voice. If there was one thing you could unplug, what is the most distorted media fact that people say that is actually just simply not true?
Well, I mean, there are 1,000, but I think that one that's obviously, just because top of mind right now, is that there is no civilizational conflict between radical jihadism and Western civilization. And that, in essence, explains everything. I mean, I just did this debate with Sally Cohn, and she was basically, I was trying to get her to this point where I say, okay, there is a conflict between certain civilizations on the planet, and that's why we can't let certain people in, and that's why we have to target certain people who are terrorists, and that's what drives everything. And she was really, really hesitant to go there. I had to drag her kicking and screaming there. But the media refuses to acknowledge that. They just say that the reason we want more screening procedures for Muslims, if all you know is just the religion, the reason we want that is just because we hate Muslims, as opposed to, no, it's because a broader percentage of Muslims agree with things we don't agree with. So of course you're going to give them higher scrutiny. That doesn't mean you don't treat them as individuals, but it does mean that you base your decision making off the information that you have available. The left refuses to acknowledge this because in the left's world, inequality equals inequity. If people are not treated equally, then that's because something unfair happened, as opposed to it's possible people are being treated unequally because they acted unequally.
Great, and I think what's interesting is you have to have some understanding of history and the psychology and sociology for many, many years to understand that there is a spirit of every religion.
Here's my feeling about religious, theology and theorizing. It doesn't matter to me particularly much what the theology underlying radical Islam is. All I know is that 99% of the people in Afghanistan are in favor of honor killing.
Right.
So I don't have to cite verses from the Quran.
Sure.
You can cite verses from the Bible. I mean, there's certainly violent verses in the Bible. You can cite stuff that you can cite stuff from the New Testament where Jesus says that he comes, to bring a sword. I mean, there's stuff. But the question is, what do the people do now? Not 1,000 years ago, not 2,000 years ago, not what's in your text. What do they do now? What do they think now? And that's the part that I care about, because if you refuse to face up to the on-the-ground facts now, all I can say is that I think Osama bin Laden knows Islam a lot better than I do, and so I'm not going to sit here arguing that he's not a true Muslim. All I know is that he's a bad guy, and he's an adherent of an ideology that unfortunately is reflective of, if not a majority, a large minority of the Muslim population globally. Not in the West, but globally.
Before the end of our show, you get to overturn 5 executive orders.
I'm super powerful. Okay.
You're super powerful. Suddenly you've taken the jump. What needs to just be completely turned around?
Obamacare needs to change. We need immigration enforcement. We need restoration of the First Amendment in terms of freedom of religion. We need further protections of the Second Amendment because the left is intent on taking guns as fast as they possibly can.
Right.
And we need to restore a balance of power between the 3 branches of government. And that means actually allowing the legislature to legislate and getting rid of the administrative state under the executive, which is the big one that nobody wants to talk about.
Yeah,
but
the
fact
Harry
is,
Reid black hole, right? 384 bills passed by both parties, sat on his desk, never addressed. That's when we had that huge shift, right?
Right. But to me, the biggest problem in American governance is the growth of the executive branch. There are 2 million people working for the executive.
All presidents have executive powers.
Right, but Obama uses them in extraordinary ways.
Specifically.
Well, right. He invokes the screw you clause of Article 2 of the Constitution, and if you won't do what I want, screw you. It's the best clause.
as chaotic as this is, I'm excited for something new after November. I know it's going to be.
Listen, I'm excited for Obama to be out.
At least it's change.
Listen, sometimes it goes darkest just before it goes pitch black. So
we'll call that a prayer. Ladies and gentlemen, Red Magenta Nation, I'm here, and actually Ben Shapiro blessed my Judaism earlier.
That
through 23andMe. It's a distant, remote thing, but we'll talk about that on another show. Judd Dunning here, Conservative Unplugged, with Ben Shapiro at Politicon 2016. Thank you for coming, Ben.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it
so much, man. We love hearing you every day. God bless you, God bless America, and God bless television.